Getting started with PowerShell. This video focuses on finding and launching PowerShell, and solving some of the initial pain points that new users experience with PowerShell. Be sure to follow along and walk through the examples shown in this video on your Windows 10 lab environment computer. What do we need to get started with PowerShell? All modern versions of Windows operating systems ship with PowerShell installed. If you're running a version older than 5.1, you should install the latest version. To upgrade to Windows PowerShell 5.1, we will see in future video upgrading existing Windows PowerShell. To install the latest version of PowerShell, we will in next video installing PowerShell. So, where do we find PowerShell? Let's see in demo. The easiest way to find PowerShell on Windows 10 is to type PowerShell into the search bar as shown in video. Notice that 4 different shortcuts for PowerShell are shown in demo. The computer used for demonstration purposes in this video is running the 64-bit version of Windows 10, so there's a 64-bit version of the PowerShell console and the PowerShell ISE, integrated scripting environment, and a 32-bit version of each one as denoted by the x86 suffix on the shortcuts. If you happen to be running a 32-bit version of Windows 10, you'll only have 2 shortcuts. Those items don't have the x86 suffix, but are 32-bit versions. If you have a 64-bit operating system, my recommendation is to run the 64-bit version of PowerShell unless you have a specific reason for running the 32-bit version. How do we launch PowerShell? In the production enterprise environments that I support, I use 3 different Active Directory user accounts. I've mirrored those accounts in the lab environment used in this book. I log into the Windows 10 computer as a domain user who is not a domain or local administrator. I've launched the PowerShell console by clicking on the Windows PowerShell. Notice that the title bar of the PowerShell console says Windows PowerShell, as shown in figure. Some commands run fine, but PowerShell can't participate in User Access Control, UAC. That means it's unable to prompt for elevation for tasks that require the approval of an administrator. The following error message is generated. The solution to this problem is to run PowerShell as a domain user who is a local administrator. This is how my second domain user account is configured. Using the principle of least privilege, this account should not be a domain administrator, or have any elevated privileges in the domain. Close PowerShell. Relaunch the PowerShell console, except this time right-click on the Windows PowerShell shortcut and select Run as Administrator as shown in figure. Once PowerShell is relaunched as an administrator, the title bar should say, Administrator, Windows PowerShell, as shown in figure. Now that PowerShell is being run elevated as a local administrator, UAC will no longer be a problem when a command is run on the local computer that would normally require a prompt for elevation. Keep in mind though that any command run from this elevated instance of the PowerShell console also runs elevated. To simplify finding PowerShell and launching it as an administrator, I recommend pinning it to the taskbar and setting it to automatically launch as an admin each time it's run. Search for PowerShell again, except this time right-click on it and select Pin to Taskbar, as shown in figure.